Bueno, como ustedes saben, estamos aquí en la edición del Money Show, en el capítulo de Miami. Como ustedes saben, el Money Show es una de las conferencias más importantes que hay allá afuera, efectivamente en todo lo que tiene que ver las finanzas, en todo lo que tiene que ver con todo lo que nos siguen desde el punto de vista de inversionistas individuales. Hoy tenemos el placer de entrevistar aquí en vivo en esta conferencia a Kevin Maloney, quien es definitivamente una de las voces más importantes en todo lo que tiene que ver con el real estate. Es el fundador del grupo PMG, que muchos de ustedes conocen, y vamos a hablar con él precisamente de algo que siempre tenemos en la cabeza, que es lo que pasa con el real estate. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for coming to our tribune. And I think the first question is, what's going on with the real estate? Everybody is trying to get some sort of idea, but I would like your insight on that, please.
So in the Miami market currently, we have a little bit of a softening at the high end. So we all us developers got together and we decided to build very large, very expensive apartments, with the exception of probably half of our portfolio. But that market, because of the high ticket price, the high chunk price, and I'm going to use a number, probably $5 million and up, that market has slowed down a bit, right? The market that is very strong, that we're doing very well in, is the market that's really $1.5 million and below. That's a very strong market. And so if you're in the market for an expensive apartment, it's probably a great time to be out there buying, because you can make really great deals with developers today.
And based on that, most of the, I think the trends that you're seeing today in the real estate is basically what is going to be the sensitivity to interest rate. We don't know what the Fed is going to do. We might have ideas. But the situation here is that if we keep going and have inflation because of the reconciliation bill, and because obviously all the things that we have in terms of deglobalization, which is inflationary per se,
it is.
We don't think the real estate is going to come down anytime soon. So what is the outlook for the real estate in markets like Florida? But you can also tell us about Manhattan and obviously the West Coast. I think it's interesting because you have the insight. What do you think is going to happen there?
So interest rates obviously have a direct relationship on the value of all real estate. Anything that's really asset-based. But we've had some really good numbers. We've had low inflation numbers reported. We have pretty good employment numbers. If our president doesn't continue to destabilize our economy through executive orders, all markets, securities market, bond market, real estate market, California, Manhattan, South Florida, all want stability in the market. They want to know what's going to happen in the future. If we can get some, which hopefully we're coming to. We already went through the tariff debacle, the let's get rid of all the immigrants in the country debacle. If we can get some sort of level playing field, which we think is coming, I think Powell will, and we see continually good numbers on inflation, I think Powell will start to ease rates. And I think that's going to help stimulate values of economy. But now when it's so disrupted, it's a great buying environment.
And in terms of developing, you mentioned that the market, let's say 2 million up or 5 million up, is hot if you are buying, because you can have a good deal. Now, from the standpoint of the developer, you are part of that community. Where do you think are the next steps? Because obviously it's not that hot now, that far, and you need to keep investing and finding, let's say, a land where you're going to build. Where do you think is the bulk of the next deal down the road?
So what we do is, when the markets are so soft and disrupted, this is when you want, because we're a ground-up developer. We don't buy existing assets and try and repurpose them. So we're now because when rates go up and the economy is disrupted, all real estate land values start to sink. So now we're a buyer of land, long term. Land that we might not build on for 5 years, we're going to go and start to find sites that we like, and we're going to buy those sites. And we're going to sit on those sites and wait. As long as you have the capital to sit and hold, we can buy sites now for probably 20% of what we would have bought at the height, right? So we think that is our next step. And most of what we're doing, because most of our projects are sold out, so we have about $3 billion in our portfolio that is just under construction. we're building in all these different locations: Manhattan, Nashville, Atlanta, Denver, 5 or 6 locations in Miami. So we're building that, but on the backside, we're acquiring sites at a very low basis. So when that market changes again, we're ready to go on those sites.
Listen, one of the things that captured our attention, obviously from the institutional standpoint, is when you see let's say the management team member of companies like Blackstone saying it might be opportunities on commercial, I mean, office building real estate. And obviously that's also a part of the some sort of ideas with regards of properties. What do you think about that? Do you think we are in a way where, remember, there is trillions of money that might have to be refined on that bucket? What do you think is going to happen with commercial, and specifically at this point with buildings and offices?
So for years, since COVID, office is really just vacated. It's continued to vacate, although the office market in Manhattan, for instance, where there was a massive hit in value, is starting to pick up again. It's starting, employers are saying to their employees, we're requiring you to come back to work. You must come back to work. Because the mentality is changing, the office buildings are getting better. But there's still a wonderful opportunity. Again, if you have the holding power like Blackstone, they're buying up a lot of that product around the country in soft markets, because for a long time the mentality was work from home, a new psychology for people. Office buildings were in trouble. We're seeing now employers push people back in. Office buildings are repopulating, and that asset class is still has a long way to go, very long way, and a lot of them have been so damaged it's unrecoverable with their banks. So they're either going to be forced to sell or they're going to be foreclosed out. There's been a lot, not a great deal, but probably 5% of those office buildings have been repurposed to residential, but they have to, of course, have a certain shape, a certain envelope, because you can't have a 40,000-foot floor plate and try and build apartments where you have window lines and then everything's dead in the middle. So a lot of buildings, most of them don't work, but the office, I would say, in the next 5 years, a great deal of the office product is going to be saved.
Y me comencé con Kevin. Le voy a contar en español lo que obviamente nos está diciendo él. Rápidamente, que ustedes tienen los subtítulos, nos ha hablado muy bien de lo que tiene que ver con comprar tierras a largo plazo, nos ha hablado muy bien de la gente que está buscando apartamentos digamos, por encima de los 2 o 3 o 4 millones de dólares, también las oportunidades que siguen existiendo, como lo dice la gente de Blackstone, en todo lo que tiene que ver con la parte comercial del real estate, del sector inmobiliario y los edificios. Y la última pregunta que le voy a hacer a Kevin, my last question for the interview is, if you see NVIDIA and all these major technology companies, they are very focusing on data centers and obviously what's happening there. I've been interviewing other people like Dan Ives from Westwood Securities. Everybody's bullish on technology. What do you think is going to happen on data centers, where you have all these major private equity trying to get into that field?
Because there is an insatiable demand for power. It's really not about data center. Everything's about power. Right? You need to have a real data center set up. You need a minimum of 300 megawatts, if not a gigawatt, right? And because of AI, because of all the computing power, that just even the Bitcoin business, which is really going to the wayside, because AI is taking over the Bitcoin power grid. There is such insatiable demand, and AI is going to power our world starting now into the foreseeable future. And all that we need probably 10 times the power capacity. Some people are talking about 1,000 times the power capacity of what we currently have. It means improving our grid, finding locations, finding new sources of power, right? And then building data centers. And data centers are really just buildings that have rack systems and it's all about the power to fuel these machines that run our everyday lives. There is not a part of our society that is not going to have an AI component to it in the next 5 years.
Listen, we have a pleasure giving you the interview. Estamos aquí, como les digo, en el Money Show. Pasamos nuevamente a los estudios. Muchas gracias.